We are joined today by Idaho Governor Brad Little. Governor, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. We're having fun.
We are having fun, that's right, here at CPAC. Well, under your leadership, Idaho has taken some really big steps to limit federal power, to cut red tape in your state. National Review, U.S. News and World Report, Ascend, they've all listed Idaho as one of the least regulated states in America. That's quite the badge of honor. What has your approach been to fighting government regulations and red tape in your state?
Well, as a rancher, business person, I know that one of the biggest constraints, there's always markets, there's always labor issues, but we can do something about regulatory red tape. Mm-hmm. And particularly as a governor, you can really do something. The first year, for every new rule we put in, we got rid of 40. And we are, as you said, the least regulated state. But it just takes the friction off of the very smallest employer to the very largest employer and allows entrepreneurship to be more successful. And so, lower taxes and less regulatory friction creates better jobs and profits, and that's good for state. That's why we got the fastest growing economy. We had far and away the fastest recovery after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Now, we often see a lot of red tape in the area of energy production. And I know that this is something that your state has really gone after. How is Idaho guarding against that?
Well, of course, a lot of it is at the federal level. In the area of particularly fire, whether it's fire control or forest health, we've just basically asked, and we've had some success, told the federal government, you can't get things done, we'll do it. The state will do it. We'll go in on the federal estate and we'll do forest health projects. We'll clean up the woods. We'll make it to where we don't have these big catastrophic fires. The same model should work for energy, to where if you can't get a permit at the federal level, they ought to cede some of that control to the state level. Still protect water, still protect air, but the federal government just works so darn slow. Both Secretary Bernhardt and Secretary Zinke, we were making great progress on that. But the Trump team got interrupted, and so we were having conversations here today about what we need to do in the next administration to reduce that regulatory hurdle so we can continue to safely and efficiently develop our energy resources.
Yeah, that's so critical. Now, in terms of economics, what really drives economics in Idaho? What is the main industry, the main export of your state?
Well, we used to be a very agrarian state, logging, mining, agriculture, food processing. But because we've had so much freedom and so much opportunity, now the whether it's the software or the hardware side, the largest semiconductor memory company in the world was started by a potato farmer, a sheep farmer, an equipment operator, and two brothers from Blackfoot, Idaho, started Micron Technology out of a garage in Boise, Idaho, and now it's the largest memory semiconductor company in the world.
Wow.
But we've just, by giving people the liberty and the free agency to be successful, we've incredibly diversified our economy.
Mm-hmm. And you all have recently cut taxes. How is that impacting the economy in Idaho?
Well, I mean, that's part of freedom. We've had back-to-back tax rate decreases. Mm-hmm. We've had back-to-back rebates where we've given our taxpayers at the end of the year, rather than building bureaucracy, we gave money back to the taxpayers. And that just sends a great signal. It sends a great signal that we don't want to grow government. If our spending, and we've had to do some things in education, if our spending goes up by 8%, but our revenue goes up by 16%, we give that money back to the taxpayers. Because I worry that a lot of these states that got a lot of this federal money, and I saw it happen the last recession in 2011, where federal money went out, states took the money and built new programs, and then they had great problems when that money went away. We're not doing that in Idaho.
Yeah. So how do you think Idaho can maybe be a model for other states, or even the federal government, because you all ended fiscal 2022 with over a $1 billion surplus. I mean, that sounds like something that would be nice if the federal government, for once, had a surplus. How did you all do that? And do you think it's possible that could happen if steps were taken, let's say, in the federal government?
Well, I mean, even more importantly, we are prepared. We've got our rainy day funds filled up. We're addressing our backlog in bridges and infrastructure, building maintenance. So if something happens, I tell everybody, I don't know what's going to happen internationally or nationally in the economy, but I know whatever happens bad, we're going to be better off in Idaho than any other state because we've been so fiscally prudent. We haven't built up the size of government. That's really the issue. You need to lower the growth of government and increase economic opportunity. That is something that everybody at CPAC would absolutely agree with, no matter where they are on the Richter scale of conservative politics.
Sure. And you announced in January that in your state, you all were going to start paying teachers more and you were going to start paying police officers more. Why was that a priority for you?
Well, we have a constitutional and a moral obligation to enhance opportunity. And, obviously, myself and a lot of my friends, they can send their kids to private schools but you have got to have a public education system that's available to all, because the founders of this country recognize that an educated public is absolutely essential to a successful democratic republic. And so I'll take my chances with any kid that's got a good, fair education, that they will do the right thing when it comes to the end of the day. I tell people all the time, they say, well, these liberal universities, and we're doing some things there, but I says, you let somebody start a family and start paying taxes, they'll automatically become more conservative.
It's true. Now, Idaho recently passed a over $400 million education bill. What does that bill do, and what is the really priority for Idaho in relation to education?
Well, the Heritage Foundation ranks us as 1 or 2 for the most efficient education results for dollars spent. And we don't spend much in Idaho, but teacher pay to be competitive with Oregon, Washington, Wyoming, Montana, we have to have higher teacher pay to where we can keep our best and brightest in Idaho to teach in Idaho. And that's mainly what is to be competitive. But we're still spending, we've got our teacher pay up to where we're probably going to be 10th or 15th in the nation, which I don't pay attention to that, but I just don't want our young people that want to get into education going elsewhere. I want them to teach here in Idaho.
Yeah. I want to switch gears and talk about an issue that we've seen in a lot of cities across America, and that's encampments. Now, the state of Idaho, you all recently won a lawsuit on this, as you were starting to see encampments crop up in some of the cities in Idaho. Talk a little bit about why you decided, no, I'm going to put my foot down and I don't want to see encampments continue to crop up, and why you chose to take some legal action there.
Well, part of the reason we've got all these refugees from Oregon, Washington, and California is because of encampments and homelessness on the street. I know in the Oregon governor's race, that was the number 1 issue in Oregon. And believe me, that's why a lot of people are moving to Idaho. My niece stayed with me a couple months ago, and she's from Denver. She went out for a run in the morning. She says, Uncle Brad, there's no homeless people. I says, well, there's one, and I went out early and I saw him. But we take care of those people, but we also, the best thing for homelessness is a good job.
Yep.
And having good jobs available. We've got, faith-based groups. We've got support services for them, but it is such a bad look for anybody to have all these homeless people out there. It ruins the pride that people have in their cities and their communities, and we just don't have it in Idaho. But it's a combination of some local programs, a few state programs, but mainly the faith-based community taking care of these people and getting them back up on their feet, getting them back out into society.
So good. Governor, I have not been to Idaho before, but when I visit, tell us, and for those who are listening who haven't been, where do we need to go? Where are the best spots to visit in Idaho?
Idaho is a very diverse state, from the Teton Valley, which is right next to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, to the very north next to Canada. Right now it's ski season, so Grand Teton on the backside of the Tetons, and Schweitzer, and every place in between. Sun Valley, but of course I'm an old rancher, and I love the plains, I love the rangeland, I love the forests, where I've spent most of my life on a saddle horse, and it's a gorgeous state.
Governor Little, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.